Welcome
to the Age of Awakening.
Please identify yourself. Enter.
Hey, welcome back, Triple P Nation. So glad you guys chose to join me this week. This week, I am completing the third part, my three-part series on the root causes of the American health crisis and how we can reverse it. If you missed the first two episodes, I highly recommend you go back and check those episodes out. The first one, we got into the real issues as far as the current state. I really went into some very shocking details about the decline in American health. I talked about the amount of money, where we rank internationally as it relates to overall health and well-being. I talked about how life expectancy is dropping. We spend more money on prescription drugs by leaps and bounds compared to the rest of the world population. And we talked about the overall epidemic in of itself, the obesity rates in children. Over 74% of adults are overweight or obese. I talked about 1 in 2 adults will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. And I mentioned, too, that childhood cancers are at an all-time high. Talked about metabolic dysfunction. And last week, I really dove deep into this thing called metabolic syndrome and all the factors that are driving this really national crisis. And really, no one's immune. Roughly 90% of the population is dealing with some level of metabolic syndrome. And what qualifies as metabolic syndrome? Well, abdominal obesity, high blood pressure, insulin sensitivity, high blood sugar levels, high triglycerides, high cholesterol, really bad stuff, right? And we know that these are the drivers of heart disease, which has now increased threefold. And type 2 diabetes was increased fivefold. And the strong link between chronic inflammation, hormonal imbalances, and autoimmune diseases. We know that it's related to our diet, a lack of activity, the chronic stress we deal with day in and day out. I mean, you cannot be living in today's world and not experiencing stress. And it's not so much about the stress, it's how we manage and handle it. Do we do so in an effective and a healthy manner? Again, we talked a lot about hormonal balances and environmental toxins. So this week, I want to finish up with a real significant contributor to metabolic syndrome and this rapid decline in overall health. In fact, there's 2 factors I'm going to talk about today. One is seed oils and their impact on our health, and the other is microplastics. And if you've been paying attention recently to really I want to say the new media, maybe I consider myself the new media, but podcasters, experts in their industry are talking about the prevalence of microplastics that are occurring in our environment and how they're contributing to this chronic health issue. I don't think the media has caught on to it yet, probably because they've been told not to. And of course, they're in the pockets of big ag, big pharma, and all those people. Once again, I remind you, those people do not have your best interest. They've never had your best interest. Well, certainly not in the last 20 years. And they've proven to us, certainly over the last 4 years, they cannot be trusted. So if you are utilizing them as your primary source of information, you are uninformed, misinformed, and unfortunately, it will keep you ignorant. So come here. Let me share with you the latest data and research. Again, everything I share with you, I have got articles, I have got research. There's nothing that I share with you that I can't back legitimately and scientifically. So it's not my opinion I'm sharing with you. It's the cold, hard facts as they stand with independent assessment, third-party testing and evaluation, double-blind studies, etc. The real way science used to be done, not bought and paid for by some sort of special interest. And that's just a reality. So you got to pay attention when you see studies, who funded this study, what university, and what's the outcome in particular, and do they have a part in the solution or the drug that was manufactured to come up with some sort of, treatment for that particular condition. So you got to be savvy. You've got to be cynical to the degree as you have to do your own research, even mine. the stuff that I show you here, go do your own research. But of course, make sure you got to make sure where you're going to do that research, because if you use Mr. Google, I'll give you a funny story. I was doing some research in advance of this episode. I was doing some work on the new federal guidelines that came on red dye number 3. And I'll get into that here in just a bit. But when I did the research, and it was actually on ChatGPT, ChatGPT said red dye number 3 does not cause cancer and has not been banned. And I said, no, you're wrong. And I gave sources, and they go, oh, we're so sorry. We gave you the wrong information. So even ChatGPT cannot be trusted. You're going to have to do your own research in certain things. It's just the way the world is, guys. Sorry, what can I tell you? So, all right, let's get into this. So, as I mentioned on last week's show, there are over 10,000 chemicals that can legally be used in the United States in food processing and packaging. And that's according to the FDA. Now, these chemicals include preservatives, right? Flavor enhancers, color additives, emulsifiers, stabilizers, and processing aids. Now, however, not all of them are directly listed on food labels. So even food labels don't give you the entire story. And some, by the FDA, are considered, generally recognized as safe. How does that make you feel? Pretty confident you can put something like that in your child's body? Now, also, they're used in indirect ways, the things that I just mentioned, such as in packaging of material, which of course will leach into your food. So, some of the most common and controversial chemicals in these processed foods include artificial sweeteners. That's aspartame and sucralose. Preservatives. Now, on food labels, they're going to appear as sodium benzoate, BHA, BHT, nitrates and nitrites. Flavor enhancers, primarily MSG, right? Monosodium glutamate. Color additives, red dye 40, red dye 3, yellow 5, blue 1. Now, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has announced plans to revoke the authorization of FDC red number 3, erythrocene. This is what I was referencing to you just a minute ago, especially in foods and ingested drugs. Now, manufacturers have until January 15, 2027 to reformulate their products. 2 years from now. I don't know why it takes it so long, but all right, well, at least we got that moving forward. Now, this decision, guys, is based on studies indicating high levels of FD&C red dye number 3 causes cancer, particularly in laboratory male rats. And although the mechanisms observed in rats, they say, may not occur in humans. Does that make you feel confident? The FDA, though, has taken action according to the Delaney Clause of the FDA, in which it prohibits authorization of color additives if it is found to induce cancer in humans and or animals. Now, the important thing to note is FD&C red dye number 40, Allura Red AC, is a different synthetic compound in dye, and it's not currently subject to the ban. Okay? Red dye number 40 remains approved for the use in food, drugs, and cosmetics in the US. And currently there's no move to revoke it. So in summary, the FDA is revoking red dye number 3 in food and ingested drugs, and compliance is January 15th. Now, a big proponent of this has been Robert Kennedy Jr., and he's been talking about this for more than a decade, and people call them nuts, a kook. And he's like, just look at the research. And the research existed in Europe. They just didn't want to see it. And part of the reason is so many of these processed chemicals that I just mentioned here are known as what's called excitotoxins. What does that mean? It means when we consume it, it actually, if you look at your brain under an EEG, your brain looks like a Christmas tree. It's just all lit up. Your synapses are firing. In other words, it creates addictive properties that literally makes you addictive to these chemicals. So part of the obesity issue in this country, of course, is choice and habit behavior, but a lot of it is also rooted in these chemicals become addictive. almost in many cases as addictive as nicotine and cocaine. In fact, sugar is found to be more addictive than cocaine. And they use sugar for virtually everything, particularly in low fat products, because they increase the sucralose and sugar to make it taste better. Now, other products are also, some of these processed products are emulsifiers and stabilizers, polysorbates and soy lecithin. So if you see that on a label, those are emulsifiers and stabilizers. Thickening agents like xanthan gum and guar gum, and then processing aids. These are bleaching agents and anti-foaming agents. Okay, so let me step back here a second. I mentioned to you in Europe and other countries beyond Europe, they don't allow this stuff in their foods. In fact, in Europe, they're only legally able to use 10 total. In the United States, there's over 100,000. Why is that? Why not so good for the Europeans and so good for us? Good question. And here's the thing. The same companies that are manufacturing the food for Europe are manufacturing food here in the United States. They're already doing it. So why wouldn't they do what they're doing there here? And the answer is simple. When you have these highly addictive products, right, that are making us sick, which is feeding the health, let me rewind that. That's feeding big pharma. There's a financial incentive to keep us sick. Well, Jay, that's just nuts. That's conspiracy. You're nuts. You're just like RFKJ. Okay, well, you give me a better answer. If they know these products cause sickness and disease, metabolic syndrome, gut health issues, inflammatory problems, heart disease, cancer, why do they continue to put it in our food? Why do they continue to cause us to ingest it? I don't have any other reason. Now, I would hope to think it's not that, but I have no other legitimate, logical reason that my brain would tell me why they are not allowed to do it in Europe and know that why they can't do it, but they do it here, contributing to the amount of sickness and disease that are occurring in our entire population. And of course, our kids as well, too. So we know these chemicals have a really potential, issue for our health. So as I mentioned, right, these processed foods cause inflammation. They contribute to the metabolic disorders that I discussed in great length on last episode. It causes gut microbiome disruption and even carcinogenic effects. So if the EU has got these strict regulations and don't allow it, why are we allowing it here? And that's why so many of us are absolutely excited and thrilled that RFKJ is going to be confirmed as the Director of Health and Human Services. I'll set aside your feelings and thoughts about vaccines. That's another discussion for a different day, which I will have and have had many times on this show with all the detailed research. Someone finally is going to look into this and hopefully begin to put into policies that has the American consumer, the American health consumer, their best interests at heart and not the best interests of these big companies. Because it's got to be a good balance between, look, I'm a capitalist at heart. I want these people to be profitable. That's good for everybody. They employ people, they make a product people want, but you could do it in a way that's effective, that reduces the risks of all these diseases, that's much healthier, that's not going to have the deleterious effect on our overall quality of life. And more importantly, as we're seeing a rapid decline in life expectancy here in the United States. So let's focus on seed oils. So seed oils are commonly called vegetable oils, and they're extracted from various seeds and are commonly used in processed foods and for cooking. The most common of all of these seed oils is canola oil, which is also known as rapeseed oil. So let me tell you about canola oil. It has a really interesting history. Originally, it was derived from rapeseed oil. It was not considered safe for human consumption due to its high levels of uric acid. which was linked to heart disease. And over time, through selective breeding and genetic modification, they transformed it into one of the most widely used cooking oils in the world. But here's some really interesting history. During World War II, rapeseed oil was in high demand. It was used as a lubricant for steam engines, ships, and military equipment due to its heat stability. So after the war was over, the demand for it plummeted. And the Canadian farmers who had been growing this crop forever, for industrial purposes, needed a new market for their crops. So fast forward to 1960, the birth of canola oil. Canadian research Dr. Baldur Stefansson and Richard Downey sought to make rapeseed safe for human consumption. So they developed a low uric acid variety through traditional plant breeding, which significantly reduced uric acid and bitter glucosinolates, which is a compound made from rapeseed oil that tastes like dog crap. So by the 70s, this new variety was rebranded as canola, short for Canadian oil. That's how it came about. So think about it. In the 80s, canola oil gained recognition as quote unquote heart healthy due to its high monosaturated fat. Remember the high carb, low fat craze? That started in the 80s. Where did that get us? Increased heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. Not my opinion. At the end of a 16-year study, the NIH came out with a study and found over the last 16 years, since we moved to a high carb, low fat diet, all those degenerative diseases, right, doubled over that 16-year period of time. Now, move ahead to the 90s. The first genetically modified canola was introduced to resist herbicides like Roundup, allowing for a large-scale industrial farming. Now, fast forward to now in the 2000s, canola became one of the world's most widely used cooking oils, and it's found in virtually every processed food. So anything in a box, bag, or can, I talked about that last week, is a processed food. Basically, if it didn't grow on the earth or walk on the earth, grow from the earth and walk on the earth, it's not live food. If it was something that was made in a factory, made in a plant, was processed, that is not live food. That's dead food. Dead food is devoid of nutrients. And to make it taste good, they got to put all this crap in it. Canola oil is primarily what's used in restaurants unless you see it different on the menu. And of course, it's used pervasively in fast food chains. So over 90% of canola crops today are genetically modified. So if you're eating out at all, you're constantly consuming canola oil. Unless, of course, you go to a restaurant and when you order, you note to the server is, hey, I'd like my steak cooked in butter. I don't want it cooked in any oil. You can do the same thing with eggs or whatever. They, in a more upscale restaurant, can modify the way that they cook the food to avoid using these oils, but you have to certainly ask for that. So let's talk about some of the controversies and the health concerns. So highly processed and refined foods, right, like canola, undergoes extensive processing, including high heat. They use chemical solvents like hexane and bleaching, which leads to the formation of what's known as trans fats and oxidized compounds. Again, I discussed those last week in depth. Go back, listen to what an oxidized compound and trans fats do to your body. Another thing is, we know that these processed foods are very, very high in omega-6 fatty acids. While lower than seed oils, canola still contributes to a significant imbalance in omega-3 to 6 ratio, promoting chronic inflammation. And the third thing is they're genetically modified. So the widespread use of pesticides and herbicides on GMO canola raises the concerns about glycophosphate residue, which is an endocrine disruptor, which studies now link to gut health issues, endocrine issues, hormonal issues, and of course, toxicity. So it's almost like, you could say like, okay, what can I eat? We'll get to that, okay? I know, I get it. It's like overwhelming because if you just take a step back, and if you're a normal American, right? Sometimes you grab food at a fast food place. Sometimes you're in the grocery store and, you're tricked by the packaging and, the marketing and the positioning of a particular product. Bag of Doritos, right? Super Bowl time. You're like, oh, God, I got to get my Doritos. And you eat it. Don't tell me it doesn't taste good. It tastes good, but we're just eating ourselves to death. It's funny. I had a mentor, one of my initial doctors who was teaching me a lot of this health and wellness and um, material. He called it assisted suicide. Our diets are assisted suicide. We're making the choice to kill ourselves and to kill ourselves rapidly by the diet we eat, right? Food for life. Either food provides life or it's taking away life. And it's a choice. You just got to know how to make better choices. So, canola oil, just really kind of wrap it up, started in a machine as a lubricant. It was later engineered into an edible oil through breeding and genetic modification. And yes, it's been promoted as heart healthy. And yes, that's been disproven. That was absolute bullshit. Again, we were lied to. It was used for industrial processing. It causes oxidative risk. And of course, it's a significant contributor to omega-6, omega-3 imbalance. So if you're a health conscious consumer, which I know you are because you listen to the show, right? It's clear now. Research has shown that there's a better alternative. And those alternatives are olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, butter, and animal fats. I'll get to that here in just a little bit. Let's talk about the 9 other, and I'm not going to go into depth like I did with canola oil because canola oil is by far the most prevalent. But here's the other ones: soybean oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, grapeseed oil, rice bran oil, sesame seed oil, and peanut oil. Now, peanuts are technically a legume, but they're often grouped into the seed oils. So let's talk about why these oils are bad for human consumption. Already talked about one, right? Omega-6 imbalance, pro-inflammatory. Now, we need omega-6s in small balance, right? In small amounts and in balance with threes. But the amount we're consuming is about 20 to 41 out of ratio. It should be about 2 to 1. It's about 20 to 41. And again, studies have shown if your 6 to 3 ratio is 20 to 1 or greater, you have a 100%. 100%. The only thing guarantee I know in life is death and taxes, right? And eating this highly processed diet, 100% guarantee of some chronic inflammatory disease. Now, inflammatory disease could be heart disease, which is an inflammatory condition, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, cancer. Pick one, right? You may get them all. You may hit the trifecta. And again, I'm being a little glib, but we got to have a little fun with this because it's a pretty heavy topic. So another aspect why it affects human consumption is these oils easily oxidize. Again, I talked about oxidation last time, but seed oils are highly unstable due to their polyunsaturated fats. We talked a lot about PUFAs. When these oils are exposed to heat or light or oxygen, they oxidize, forming toxic aldehydes and free radicals. Free radicals is what's floating in our system. They create damaged cells, damage our DNA, metabolic syndrome, hello, sickness and disease. The third thing is they're associated with metabolic dysfunction, and that leads to obesity. So a couple of studies that I looked at showed that excessive seed oil consumption disrupts mitochondrial function, which promotes fat storage. And in that fat is the toxicities. Fats like toxicities, they hang on to it. So literally our fat becomes toxic, which also contributes to insulin resistance and metabolic disorders. So seed oils also interfere with leptin and ghrelin. So those are the 2 hormones that regulate hunger. And the best way to remember this, ghrelin, like your stomach growling, ghrelin makes you hungry, right? If your ghrelin levels are high, it makes you hungry. If leptin levels are low, you're hungry. If leptin levels are high, it makes you feel full and you don't overeat. Guess what? These highly processed foods, right, downregulate ghrelin, which means it makes you chronically hungry. So when you eat this crap, do you ever notice in an hour you're hungry again? You just ate like 1,500 calories. Like, how could it be hungry again? And you just never feel satiated. Now, the fourth thing is the increase of heart disease. Again, I said, canola oil is not heart healthy. So what we know is this increases LDL oxidation, contributing to plaque buildup and arterial inflammation. So the difference between HDL and LDL is very simple. LDL, okay, instead of being metabolized in the liver, gets deposited in the arterial walls, and that creates the plaquing, which causes a reduction in blood flow, which can create a clot and or throw a clot or an occlusion, blocking blood, creating an ischemic attack, therefore causing a myocardial infarction. So bad news, right? Bad news. Now, HDLs take the cholesterol and metabolizes it in the liver. So for men and women, I gave those numbers last week where you want to be for optimal or ideal HDL and LDL levels for men and women. Now, high numbers are not a guarantee or predictive of having a cardiovascular incident or not having a cardiovascular incident. They're just predictors, right? And you want to get your numbers in ideal ranges to reduce those predictors, produce those percentages and chances. Now, the fifth thing we know that these seed oils affect is they contribute to hormonal imbalance. Again, I spent a lot of time on this. I talked about our Revitalizing Health and Hormone Clinic. We spent a lot of time and effort helping people with less than optimal hormonal levels that are, really causing havoc on every aspect of their emotional and physical well-being. So we know that this excessive omega-6 intake is linked to lower testosterone levels in men and estrogen dominance in women, both not good, right? So this leads to infertility, mood swings, hormonal disorders, potential dementia, some increases in cancer. So you really want to make sure you get your hormonal levels tested, make sure they're optimized and associated with the appropriate nutrition that's right for you, not, shotgunning, taking a bunch of stuff that you may not need that actually may cause issues, is really understanding on a macro level how everything integrates and knowing what the right formula is for you so you can maximize your body's physiology so you can express health on a moment by moment basis and feel amazing. Feel amazing. You can do so. It's not a pipe dream. We used to feel amazing all the time. But over the last 40 years, due to all the environmental and toxic changes in our food, as I've just been explaining over the last 3 weeks, slowly, we don't even know what it feels to feel amazing anymore because so few of us do. 90% of the people, 90% of the population has metabolic syndrome. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can get back to feeling amazing. So I did mention how you can connect with us. It is revitalizinghealthwellness.com if you want to get your levels tested. And if you want to find out where you're at and how you can turn that process around and just feel amazing again. So that's revitalizinghealthwellness.com. Go to the contact us, put your information in, and someone will reach out to you. Number 6, we know that highly processed oils and foods link to gut dysbiosis and leaky gut syndrome. Believe it or not, I dealt with this about 3 years ago. And I think it was we were buying a lot of fruit, but not organic fruit. We were eating a lot of berries and strawberries. And so all the glycophosphates that are sprayed on the foods, herbicides, pesticides that are spread on the food, had created a leaky gut syndrome, but I didn't know it at the time. It was manifesting as chronic joint pain. Get up in the morning, hands, fingers, elbows, shoulders, everything like I thought I had rheumatoid arthritis. Like, what the hell is going on here? Right. And of course, I called my naturopath health coach at the time. We did a comprehensive blood assessment and analysis. We checked my inflammatory panels. We checked my hormone levels. We checked my lipid panels, my sugar levels. We we checked sensitivity, allergy testing, DNA test. I mean, the whole 9 yards. It was really comprehensive. And what we found out is that I was allergic to grapes and berries. Sensitivity to berries, allergic to grapes, red meat. We were eating a lot of red meat, even though we would buy it from a local farmer and it was organic meat, just eating too much of it. So anything you eat too much, at some point your body become resistant to it and it can create this gut dysbiosis. And that leads to leaky gut, which simply means the lining of your gut is only one endothelial cell thick. That's all it is. It's a cell connected to a cell by a cell by a cell by a cell. And between those cells is where the gut can leak out, and it leaks out what's called antigens into your bloodstream, right? These then cause an inflammatory response, and that's why it was occurring in my joints. It was occurring in my gut, but I really wasn't having gut issues. I was noticing it systemically. You can notice it in your brain as brain fog. You can notice it in other areas as well too. Skin is a common place where you'll see eruptions, sores, psoriasis. Oftentimes, that's gut issues. So, and again, the underlying cause is all these processed oils and foods. So, when the gut lining is damaged, it leads to what's called intestinal permeability or leaky gut. And just like I expressed to you, this created an autoimmune response in me, in my joints, because of the food sensitivities. So, another thing we test for, we want to make sure, because again, by the way, leaky gut syndrome is prevalent in over 60% of the population. Why? Because of all the crap that we eat. But there's ways to heal yourself. There's ways to identify. There's ways to know. There's ways to turn that around. And that's the exciting part, to see people's lives change. It's absolutely incredible. And the last and seventh reason why these compounds are so bad for us, because they're carcinogenic. So when heated, these oils produce acrylamides, heterocyclic amines, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. These are all linked to increased cancer risks. Not good stuff. So we know the consequences of seed oils are inflammation, weight gain and obesity, insulin resistance and diabetes, gut damage and autoimmunity, brain fog and cognitive decline, liver damage and fatty liver disease, hormonal imbalances, and increased risk of cancer. Again, we went into quite a bit more depth last week on these, but they're essentially exactly what metabolic syndrome does, right? It's all tied together. So, what are some solutions? How do we avoid this? Well, the first thing we need to do is to eliminate these seed oils. And how do you do that? Well, first of all, guys, stay away from the center of the grocery store where the processed food is. Remember, box, bag, or can is crap. It's dead food, no nutrients, which kills you. But the chips taste so good. I know, I love them. I'm a salt guy, right? I'm a salty guy. I like that stuff. But it's terrible for you. Absolutely horrible. So I love the 90-10, 80-20 rule. It's not to say never have it again, but if you have it maybe once a month, it's not going to kill you. Here's the thing. The more you eat cleaner, the less you want to eat this crap because it doesn't taste good. More importantly, you don't like the way it makes you feel. I have a challenge for you. Do an elimination diet. Eliminate this stuff for a month. Tell me how you feel. And then after you're done, right, write down how you feel. Gosh, sleeping better. My mind is so much clearer. My mind is sharper. I have no brain fog. Energy's rocking. I'm killing in the gym. I have no joint soreness, right? My libido's good, whatever, right? All those things. Then take one day, go to the grocery store, buy all your favorite crap. Buy some ring dings, some ho-hos, right? Some Doritos, some chips, some guac. Well, guac's fine. Whatever your comfort food is, and just pig out to no end. Then tell me how you feel that night or the next day. You're going to want to wish you were dead. And it's going to tell you everything you need to know about how important it is of what you put into your mouth and what's feeding your cells. When you feed your cells really good, live, healthy food, you feel alive. When you eat that crap, right? I bet you the next day too, you get up, you're going to have, your gut's going to be all in knots. You're going to have gas. You're going to be bloated, probably diarrhea. You may even throw up, all those fun things. But again, the funny thing is that after I was like, man, I'm not doing that anymore. This sucks. I don't want to feel that way. And that's how you make changes in your life. So other ways, right? So we talked about those oils. We talked about, okay, use stable cooking fats, replace the oils with olive oil and butter, right? Organic butter, coconut oil, ghee, tallow. Avoid cooking any polyunsaturated fat, any of these seed oils in high heat, because this is what really disrupts that oil and makes them highly toxic. Next thing is read your labels. Even though I told you some of this stuff is hidden, a lot of it you're going to see on there. So when you see these seed oils, right, you're going to know, okay, Jay said it's not good for me. Maybe I can find something else. Do you know there's so much seed oils in like salad dressings and mayonnaise? We talked about chips, right? Baked goods, fast foods. And my son started making his own salad dressing. He came home, he made this blue cheese dressing. I'm like, oh, what brand is this? And he goes, brand? He goes, I made it myself. Like all natural ingredients. It was awesome. Yes, it took a little extra time, but it was really good for you, right? And it's not going to rush you to a premature death. And then the last thing is you got to store these oils. You got to store them properly. You got to keep them in a dark, cool, dry place so it slows the oxidation down. So let me talk about the olive oil, avocado, so on and so forth. So these oils are rich in what's known as polyphenols, which support health and brain health. So let me explain what a polyphenol is. So these are occurring compounds found in plants that have powerful antioxidant, anti-inflammatory properties, and they help protect your body from oxidative stress. It reduces your inflammation and supports overall well-being. The polyphenols are found in really a lot of different foods. So I talked about fruits, right? But you got to do organic because you got to stay away from the glycophosphates. Same thing with vegetables, particularly with onion, spinach, and broccoli. Tea and coffee. For you coffee lovers, go for it. Lots of polyphenols. Same thing with tea. Although loose leaf tea is way better. Why? Because bag tea, research just came out. Yeah, I know. You're going to want to shoot me. A lot of microplastics in tea bags. I'm going to get to microplastics in a second. So black tea, black coffee, green tea, right? Loose leaf tea. Dark chocolate, dark cocoa. A lot of good polyphenols in that. Red wine for you red wine lovers. Yay, red wine. Highest amount of polyphenols in Pinot Noirs, which just happens to be my favorite grape variety. And then nuts and seeds. So these polyphenols, the benefits are they're antioxidant protective, so they neutralize the free radicals that cause cellular damage. Get this, ladies, particular, it's anti-inflammatory and anti-aging, right? So it reduces the chronic inflammation linked to stress, makes your skin look nicer and healthier, more vibrant, reduces disease risk and arthritis. It's heart healthy, it's brain healthy, improving cognitive function and reducing the risk of neurodegenerative diseases. Gut healthy, right? Supports the growth of beneficial gut bacteria and helps with digestion. And also, it helps balance blood sugar levels, which is really good. So it helps improve your insulin sensitivity. All these things we talked about last week. So here's a couple of suggestions, guys, how to add more polyphenol foods into your diet. Of course, tea and coffee. Enjoy, have fun, drink as much as you can, get a really good roasted coffee, and enjoy yourself. Add berries to your breakfast or to a protein shake. Sprinkle cocoa powder in your protein shake, or if you're doing organic yogurt, you can mix it in there, add some flavor. Dark chocolate, those little squares really kind of satisfies any sweet cravings, especially at night. Nuts or seeds, walnuts are amazing. Almonds are amazing. Flaxseed, although you got to be careful with flaxseed, tends to be high in omega 6s. It's so good for you. You don't just want to go crazy with it. And of course, olives and olive oil, um, great snacks. Put them in your salads, things like that. Herbs and spices, guys. Lots of polyphenols in our oregano, turmeric, cinnamon, and of course, garlic, my favorite. And then eat more spinach and kale and onions and broccoli. And if you do eat grains, quinoa and whole oats or even brown rice is better than the refined grains, although I'm not a big grain guy. And then phenol rich beverages, as I mentioned, red wine, pomegranate juice, matcha tea. These are real good sources of polyphenol. So to counteract the bad stuff, add some of these good stuff. And then, of course, cook with extra virgin olive oil. Add garlic to everything because I'm Italian, peanut butter and jelly, put some garlic on there. I'm just kidding. Fermented foods, kimchi, sauerkraut, miso, things like that. Okay, so we covered the seed oils. We covered ways to mitigate, what their cause, how they came about, why they're dangerous, and how do we change it. Now, I'm going to end up here on microplastics. I mentioned this in my opening. Why? There is that word again, study. There's a study that was published just 2 days ago in Nature magazine that confirms that tiny plastic fragments are passing through our brain's protective blood-brain barrier, which is impacting cognitive function. So the researchers at the University of New Mexico tested autopsy samples from 2016 to 2024, and they found that over that 8-year period of time, the amount of microplastic fragments in our brains has increased by 50%. Wait, stop. Let me repeat that. The amount of microplastics they have found in the brain have increased by 50% in just 8 years. Like every alarm bell and siren needs to be going off, right? That's crazy. So brains affected by dementia showed significantly higher concentration, guess what, of microplastics. Now, the findings were in such high concentration in the brain, it really was unexpected and alarming to the researchers. Researcher Matthew Campen said that people are simply being exposed to ever-increasing levels of micro and nanoplastics. The particles are so small, they're roughly the width of 2 COVID viruses standing side by side, he said. Just infinitesimally small. Nano means, micro, right? Well, it's not micro, it's even smaller than micro. Now, the rate of accumulation is simply mirroring the environmental buildup and the exposure. And as plastics break down over time, it degrades and becomes small enough to enter the human body and brain. Now, here's the thing. Now, while the study correlates microplastics to dementia, the study, quote, does not prove that higher level plastics in the brain directly cause dementia symptoms as of yet, right? They're theorizing, but they don't know yet. So, more research to be done. It's also possible that the disease process itself may hinder the brain's ability to clear out accumulated plastics, Kempton noted. So researchers believe that micro and nanoplastics may enter the body through, our food and our drinks and our breathing, right? It's in the air. And then these particles have been found in various parts of the body, including our arteries, our heart, our lungs, our blood, and even the placenta. And a study published in January of this year found plastic pollution to be significantly higher in placentas from premature births. So it's everywhere, and everybody's affected by it. So they believe that one of the possible reasons for the buildup, according to Garcia, is that organs like the liver and kidneys, which are designed to filter toxins, while the brains are more limited to clearance systems. So in other words, the kidney and liver has its own process to eliminate toxicity and toxins. The brain has a very limited ability to do so. And the other theory is that the brain tissue, which is made of 60% fat, they just get trapped into the brain fat particles. So currently, there's no treatment that exists to remove microplastics from the body. So it must be mitigated through your behavior, right? Here's the deal. You can never eliminate the exposure entirely. It's impossible. But you can, right? With things that you purchase, how you store your food, how you cook your food or prepare your food. Eliminate as much plastic in your environment as possible. Do you know there is a lot of microplastics in the clothes that we wear? I'm finding out more and more. If you're a entrepreneurial and if you're innovative, if you can design, some of these new fabrics that people love, they're so soft and they don't wrinkle and they wear well, which have a lot of microplastics, and replace and design something that doesn't have microplastics, you'll be a billionaire really quickly because that'll be a market that's going to explode here. So I'm just throwing out the idea for you, really ingenuitive people here in Triple P Nation. So, and by the way, if I gave you the idea, I'm just going to take a little small cut, maybe 5%. I'll help you with it too. So that's the deal on microplastics. It's real. It's happening. I know. After all this, you just want to shoot yourself. I get it. But here's the deal, guys. Here's the deal. This is information that we need to know and understand. If you're going to take control of your health for you and your family, you must understand what is down regulating our immune system function or cardiovascular function, what is leading to chronic obesity, chronic inflammation. How did we get here? Statistically, right? Are the numbers supportive to where we are? And the answer is yes. Is it getting better? No. Is it getting worse? Yes. Are there ways to mitigate it? Yes. Are there strategies that you can take and take control for you and your family? Yes. Do you need to be proactive? Yes. Do you need to take time, study, and learn? Yes. Will you need to take time to prepare? Yes. Yes to all of that. But here's the question. How important is your well-being? How important is the well-being of your family, of your friends, of your community? Will you lead? Will you inform? Will you educate? Will you empower? Right? See, now that you've learned, you can't unlearn. Now that you know, you can't unknow. So now it's your responsibility to go ahead and share. And if you're a practitioner, a doctor, or a chiropractor, you need to share these episodes with your patients. Everyone needs to hear this stuff. Why? Because they're going to be better patients. Because they're going to understand how they got to where they're at. And you are just their coach to help them along the process, to give them the resources and to guide them, right? A good percent is going to embrace this and you're going to be a hero to them. Not only that, but there are people in your sphere right now who are dying slowly and some really fast because of their habits and behaviors. So if you don't know what's going on, how could you change what you don't know is happening? Now, once you know what's happening, then have the free will of making choices. You can continue to go down the path of assisted suicide, self-assisted suicide, right? When the ultimate demise occurs, I don't know, but it's going to be more and more rapid. Why? Because I know longevity rates are declining, particularly faster in males than females. And it's only happening here in the United States. So if it was a genetic thing, it'd be happening all over the country. It's not. Oh, excuse me, all over the world. It's not. It's only here. And you can then hold your elected officials accountable for the policies that they support, the companies that they support. You see, change is going to occur from the bottom. It's going to occur from me. It's going to occur from you, people like RFKJ, Casey and Callie Means, and all of this community, which is growing so rapidly. The voices that are out there that are saying, enough. I've had enough. Stop poisoning our families. It's not okay. And they need to be held accountable. But if we don't do it, who will? So the mantle is passed from me to you. Will you take action? Not only for yourself, but on these issues. How could you get involved? Maybe it's in a local community organization. Go out, speak to people, right? Maybe it's at your school board. Talk about the school lunches. Talk about death by a million cuts. Good Lord. How could they ever call that stuff food? Okay, I'm done preaching. But this is really important. I love you guys. I really do. Every day I get to be behind it. I'm really, really grateful to do that. And if one of you took this message and it changes your life, and then maybe you tell two more and it changes their life, I don't care how long it took me to put this episode together, how long it took me to record this episode. It's irrelevant. I don't care. I don't care. I hope one of the legacies that I leave is that I was a part of changing a very, very sick and broken system. At least putting in, being a tiny, 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 tiny nanoparticle cog in the sea of change. And if we all become nanoparticles of change, a cog, then we begin to see a shift and transition. That should become a leader. Should become an innovator. So I want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to this 3-part series. I'm thinking about adding additional topics to this. A few of you asked, could you get more in depth on hormonal therapy? And I will do that. One of you reached out and said, hey, can you do a show on peptides? I'm like, yeah, for sure. How about gut health issues? Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I'll seek out resources, experts in their fields as well, too. I realized this past year, I did a lot of business and finance stuff, and it's cool. I love that stuff, right? But now it's kind of time to kind of shift back a little bit and to shift back and to really, I was inspired by this when I watched RFKJ's initial congressional testimony and the courage it took for him to sit there with these pompous jackasses, right? Accusing him, attacking his character, questioning his motives. When those I want to use much harsher words, guys, but I'm trying to control myself. When those people take millions and millions and millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry and their lobbyists, from big ag and their lobbyists, from the food companies and their lobbyists, and they sit there and they have the audacity to lecture him and to question him. He's taking some ratty ass government job that pays a couple of $100,000 a year. He disassociated and dissolved himself from his company, Children's Health Defense, who I had Polly Tommy on in November, who's on the board, who's the executive producer of the 3 Vaxxed movies, who's at the forefront of the fight of suing these companies and changing policies just like he did with Red Dye 3. He's doing this because he has a bigger mission and he needs our help. And so I hope you'll join me and be a part of that mission and share this information. So with that, I love you guys. I appreciate you. I love you because you love what I love. Not just that, but because you're willing to do the work and you're willing to stand up for what you believe in. And I'm proud of you for that. And I can't thank you enough for that. So guys, you be you. Just be the best you. And I promise you will always empower your dreams, ignite your passion, and accelerate your prosperity. Until next time, be well.